Welcome to the Rustic Garden Homestead. This video is all about how you can grow food the cheapest way possible. I'm going to show you how I made these earth beds behind me. This place was covered in weeds, so I do a whole garden redesign. Also going to talk about simple basic fencing, keep the rabbits and deer out. If you want to subscribe and follow me, I'll be planting this garden up, show you everything that goes in as direct seeds, as transplants, but really show you what you can grow in a 13-foot by 15-foot space like this. Again, earth beds are the cheapest way to grow, very effective, and then it's just basic fencing to keep out the deer. Let me show you the process. We're going to start with, this is actually the after. This is after about a day's worth of work. Let's go to when the ground here was all covered in weeds, and I'm going to show you the whole design process. We'll get to the demo and redesign when this was nothing but weeds in a second, but I wanted to go over some principles now. You'll hear them throughout the video. South is right over that way, west is over there. So when you're setting up your beds, like right in here I have 3 mounds. In the front mound I'm going to have the smaller plants, the middle plants, the taller plants, and then the very tall plants back here. You don't want to put your tall plants all the way up front, or they're going to cast shade down onto the mounds behind there. So it's really small, medium, large plants when south is facing that way. In these rows over here, the sun is going to go right down the rows, so you can plant really as you wish down the rows. That's going to be predominantly for potatoes. The dark space in there is mulch. That's the walking paths. Generally speaking, you want the walking paths to be about 18 to 24 inches so you can get a wheelbarrow down there. These are a little bit smaller. This is only a 13 by 15 foot space, so I would carry anything I need really in buckets, but I could get a wheelbarrow down there. Right across here, I put down some boards. This will be the main access area to walk down into my paths. Pretty much earth mounds. That was just actually framed up with some extra lumber. Below here, whoever lived here before me had a fire pit, so there's broken glass. So I wanted to frame the area up and just raise it a little bit so I'm not working in the broken glass. That's going to be for radishes or something like that. This is just a straight turned bed here. Going to be putting in peppers and some taller plants along here. But real quick, and you can see the mess, I'm in the midst of demolition and planting potatoes and all kinds of stuff. Word of advice, when you're taking on a big project, take the time to appreciate what you accomplish. Don't always be looking at what you have to do next. I started right in that space. This place is really covered in weeds and just slowly worked my way over until it looked like this. Enjoy the work that you do. Enjoy the successes. Don't get bogged down with always thinking there's more on your to-do list. This place is perfect for planting an entire spring, summer, and fall garden. I'm taking advantage of the 60, 70 degree days that we have here in mid-March, and I'm going to redesign. This was once my no-dig garden where I was just putting down compost and growing in it. Now, a no-dig means you try not to dig it, you try not to turn it. But in this case, I'm going to redesign it. So I'm going to be digging in rows, south is that way, that are going to go right down the middle. I'm changing it up. The beds were a little bit too big. They were a little bit cumbersome. I'm going to be keeping this row right here where I grow peppers. I want to start with the fencing. Last year I had deer jumping in here after 4 years. What I had up just wasn't working. This is just basic fencing that you can get at the big box stores. And these are just U-posts. And I didn't even put these every like 6 feet or 8 feet. I mean, I just stuck them in the corners for the most part. It's kind of wobbly, but this keeps the rabbits out, the larger rabbits, keeps the deer out, and it's really hard to see. So when you're approaching this garden or you're parking in a driveway, you don't really see the fence. But this is going to give me a lot more protection. So I decided, I'm going to change up the beds. I'm going to show you the whole process. South is that way. I'm going to do the longer rows coming right in here. So I'll walk into this space, walk down here, and then I'll go to the board so that I can tell where the peppers are going to go, and then I can walk down the rows. So it's going to be a lot of change, and I just wanted to stress the point that digging and turning your soil is perfectly fine. You can do that with a shovel. We're not pulverizing it with a tiller. This is great soil. It all has to be weeded out, but I want to show you the redesign process. We'll talk about fertilizing, getting it set up, using compost, using organic fertilizers, using, yes, the chemical type fertilizers. Perfectly safe, great for a budget, and a great way to get your soil set up. And then you can go back to your organic ways. Organic gardening to me is just using really compost and materials you source from your area. But let me get started. First thing, I'm gonna weed out this area, and we're gonna put in the first row right through here, and then a second row right back there, all the way to those boards. Let me show you how it looks. First thing, sculpting and weeding. We're gonna feed, fertilize, and do all that later. This is pretty much a demo day, so you're just focusing on reconstructing the beds. Fertilizing, worms, microbes, all that kind of stuff we don't need to worry about. They're gonna love the new beds. The worms are gonna move back into these nice little condos here. The microbes will set themselves back up. Everything's gonna be fine. What I have now is I started here, you know, the entrance comes right into here. Little bed, maybe potatoes going there. First long row going all the way down up to the boards here, and then I have a second row. Generally, spacing in between is usually about 2 feet so that you could move a wheelbarrow down there. I don't need that here. I'll use 5-gallon buckets. So they are a little bit more close together. And then the width of the beds can be 2 to 3 feet, whatever you want to do. Mound it up. Perfect way to design earth beds. And it's a really effective way to grow. And it's really the cheapest way to grow. So we step into here and, you know, we have the 2 rows facing south. Going to put in a 3rd row. We'll see what happens when I get down to the other side. But we can pretty much just walk out here to the boards, come on down, and then I can just walk down the rows. And you can see all the growing space that I'm gonna have. Now, it's really important, you know, when you're doing projects that are bigger, take the time to just enjoy what you completed. Just don't look over here and say, oh my God, I got so much more to do. Slow and steady builds the garden. Appreciate what you're accomplishing and just do it over a couple of days if you have to, you know. A little bit here, a little bit there. Before you know it, this whole bed is going to be completed and I'll be getting my potatoes and other things into there. Decided on a design change for the main reason, well, one reason being I found that little cabbage that overwintered and it would have been right in a walking path and it's starting to head, so I decided to keep it. But more importantly, I would have had to put in an entire kind of trench like that over there, and it wasn't going to maximize that space. By just putting in a trenches that way, it's only 2/3 the length of the trench right there. I have more beds, and I was going to have some dead space on the other end because the bed would have been like right there, and then it would have been hard to reach into that box up there. So by changing the design, I'm going to get more growing space, and I have to do a little bit less work. I also decided, because I am keeping the wood here, and this is going to be predominantly for peppers coming along here, that I'm not going to trench this out. So I'd be walking down here anyway. So I can also turn this whole space into one bed because I can stand on this side, reach in and do what I need to do. I can stand here, reach in, and then I can stand over there and reach in. So I wouldn't have to put another trench down there that would take away from some of the gardening space. So design-wise, I like it. I didn't expect this when I started, but I think it looks pretty good. Going to finish it up, and then we'll get over to this area. And just FYI, there's a lot of wood chips right here. So if you have a lot of wood, you want to rake it to the side because you don't want to mix it into the earth. It's going to compete for nitrogen with your plants. There wasn't a lot of wood chips in here, so it was fine just to turn everything over. But I heavily mulched this area, so I'm going to want to pull the mulch away, the wood chips away, and then I'll put it back when I'm done. But we're almost there. Then I got to, you know, fix up this space right there, get rid of the weeds. Also discovering, real quick, you know, all kinds of rocks and stuff like that. But be careful when you're digging in old farmland because there must have been a fire pit right in here. And all this glass is underneath there. So I'm working slow and steady just to make sure I don't cut myself. And I don't wear gloves either, so I probably should. But just work slowly if you're not sure what's underneath until you get a feel for the land. Because it's a big fire pit. And maybe stuff will grow better here because there's been so much burned wood. There's going to be a lot of phosphorus and potassium down there. Maybe high in calcium, who knows, but we'll see how it goes. The new area is almost finished, so the next step is really fertilizing. This is my plug for composting, which I'm going to do often because it's so important. This is what organic gardening really is. It's taking the resources on your property, turning it into compost. So all the weeds that we pulled out, we're going to go into the compost bin. I have all kinds of different videos on composting. I will link a few in the video description, and I'll be doing future videos on it. So I am going to take care of that garden with some chemical fertilizers, just to show you how to use them, organic fertilizers, and compost. That's some leaf compost in there that I'm going to be using. But right over here, some more compost bins. Used up a lot of this last year, all in this space here. This is what's left. This is good to go into some of the beds. Composting is going to save you a lot of money. It's what the plants want. It's what the soil life wants. It's what the worms want. It's really the best thing you can do. So even before you start a garden or dig a garden or build a garden or redesign a garden, try and set up some compost piles, some bins if you have the space. It's really going to pay you dividends going forward, because not only does it save you money, but it just creates beautiful soil and you're going to get more production out of your garden. The beds are mostly done. I'm going to take a break and add the fertilizers to them, and then I'm going to finish off that last row back there. So you have a couple of choices. You always want to use compost if you can. And this is compost that I made. You just saw that. It's 100% broken down. I can actually grow straight into here. It's not going to harm the plants. When you buy bagged compost or bagged manures, it's not regulated. It can be in any kind of degree of decomposing, meaning it may not be fully broken down. If you add compost that hasn't fully broken down and you put it in the top 2 inches of your soil, work it in, and then you put seeds in there, those plants are going to struggle, because the nitrogen that's in your soil is going to be used to break down the bagged products you bought. So you want it to be fully decomposed, and this is perfect. This is what you want to feed the soil, feed the microbes, feed the plants. It really takes care of everything. It's the way to go. However, compost isn't the easiest to make. Your next choices on the left is the organic fertilizer, and then the chemical types. Chemical types do not harm you, your soil, or your plants. If you use the chemical fertilizers, crazily over and over again, yes, it's going to cause a problem. But both of these products are just like vitamins. Just because it says organic, that doesn't do much for the soil. It feeds the microbes for a little bit, then it goes away. It's the organic compost, the organic matter that you put in, that makes a difference. So when you're faced with these two choices, you can use either one. I predominantly use the Plant Tone, which is an organic fertilizer, and I got this whole bag on sale for like $4. So I buy my stuff when it's cheap. The organic fertilizers can be expensive. The chemical types made by people, they're cheaper. They work the same way. So for my potatoes, I want a higher phosphorus and potassium level in the soil. So I'm going to use the 10-10-10. And in other places I'll use the Plant Tone, in other places I'll use the organic fertilizer. You don't have to do that. You don't have to specialize like that. You could take either the Plant Tone, organic, or the chemical types, use that, and then hopefully you have compost to mix into there, because that's going to make all the difference. But either of those is going to work. I just don't want people to fear the chemical fertilizers, and if you're on a budget, they are really the cheapest way to go. And when you're growing food, sometimes you're growing, to feed your family, save some money. This is the chemical type, and I'm just going to scatter it across the top so that it just looks something like that. I'm not overdoing it. And I'll go down the whole row here. Get a little more down there. All the way down the row. And then once it's down, I just want to show you it looks something like that. I'll get my shovel, mix it into about 4 inches or so. You could use the chemical type, you could use the organic together, you could throw in compost. You don't need to overdo the fertilizers. This is plenty. This has been a great bed that I've been putting compost down in every year. So I am just giving it the 10-10-10 NP and K so that my potatoes really get off to a great start. For this bed, I'm not going to be growing potatoes. I'm just going to use the Plant Tone, the organic fertilizer, and I just take a handful and pretty much just scatter it across the top. This will get mixed into the top 4-6 inches, pretty heavily handed. I'd go all the way across the top, mix it in, and then just let it go, and I'm good to go. That's all you really need to do to prep the bed. Now, on top of this bed, I'm also going to put in 2-4 inches of compost across the top and work it in. And you could just do the compost, let it be, or you could do a combination of the organic fertilizers like you just saw me do and the organic fertilizer. I don't want you to get overwhelmed with thinking everything has to be perfect. Just scatter stuff down, mix it in, it's good to go. Last time I'm going to stress, compost, organic matter, is what really builds the soil and creates a great garden. It's not your organic dry fertilizers. It's of course not the chemical dry fertilizers. It's the organic matter that makes all the difference. I misspoke a little bit. I'm used to this being my no-dig garden where I would put down like 4 inches, 10 centimeters of compost, and that's what I would grow into. For just prepping the bed like this is right in here. There's no compost, and it's maybe a half an inch, you know, inch in some areas scattered across there. That's all I would put down. I'm gonna mix that in a good 4 to 6 inches, and just wanted to show you what that would look like. You know, depth of the shovel, that's like what, 10 centimeters maybe, 15 centimeters. But you're just working all the fertilizers and compost in nicely and just mixing it through. And this way you don't have any concentration of them where the seed might go. And this is all that you really need to do. This will set the plants up well. I'll talk about water-soluble fertilizer in future videos. I'll also be planting and tending this entire garden. So if you want to subscribe and follow me, I'll show you how I take care of this entire garden for 2025. And water-soluble fertilizers will be a future video. Nothing fancy. The beds are looking good. They've been fertilized, and now I'm going to finish off that last bed. Major demolition is done. Beds have gotten their basic feeding. Pretty much ready to plant. And again, please follow me. I'll show you how I plan up and take care of this entire space for 2025. I'm going to be direct seeding some seeds this week, putting in my transplants, putting in potatoes, a lot of the cool weather crops, and then I'll move to the summer crops or the warm weather crops, as the season progresses. I really like the way that it turned out. South is right over this way, so I'm getting, 2 long beds will get the full sun going right down the middle through there. The beds over there will just have smaller plants in the front, medium plants in the middle, bigger plants in the back. This way when the sun is coming in, the plants aren't casting shade onto each other. Smaller goes closer to the south. Really like how it turned out. Next step real quick is I'm going to put in mulch. That will decay and break down. That will feed the garden over the years, but it'll keep my feet from getting muddy. So I'm going to drop in the mulch, be ready for planting. I consider that a good day's work. Mulch is in. The design wasn't, how I envisioned when I first started, but I love the way it turned out. I'm kind of motivated now. The whole space is cleaned up. All the weeds are gone. I'll get to planting. I'll be moving in different trellising options. I'll be growing all kinds of different things in here. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. I sell tomato and pepper seeds for $1.75 a pack. All other seeds are only $1.50 a pack. And again, thanks so much for watching.